Welcome back to LivAnimated.com. Let's learn something new. Last time we left off, we were working with creating our rig for our character. What we're going to work on now is skinning the character to the rig and making sure that the envelopes for the vertices onto the bones match, meaning that when we start moving our character around, we'll get the desired look from our poses. We'll also do a range of motion test, and then we'll save that animation out so we can use it as a reference for when we start to move the character around and see if the bends at the joints are as desired. So let's just jump right into it. Let's go back into opening up our last file that we were working on. So have Maya open, navigate to where the last file was that we were working on. And I was number 18. So we're going to open that file up. Hopefully you've gone through a few times and, have gotten a little used to setting up the rig. If you haven't, that's no problem. As long as you're following along, you should be good to go. So we are opening up our file. Everything should load in as intended. You may or may not have had your layers hidden when we were last working on it, but if it is hidden, just unhide everything. The face controllers will still be there. What we're going to do now is go to the next step of this. So what you'll see is your toolbox on the right side is going to be gone. So we're going to go back up to the ARTv2 icon on the start bar up here. And we're going to click on Create Rig. Once we click on Create Rig, it's going to bring back up our toolbox. And what we want to do is finalize setup. Everything should be good to go. But before you finalize setup, we want to go and click on Bake the Offset Mover Values to the Glow Movers. So we want to do that first. So all you need to do is click it and select all and then Bake Offsets. That makes sure that everything is like pretty much zeroed out from what you've done to it and doesn't have any weird values or anything to it. Once that's done, close the box and then go to Finalize Setup. I'm going to click through these quick. You can read them as they come up, but for what we normally do in the process is, we already clicked this button, so we can click continue. This is just warning you that you need to, click that. We don't want to use proxy geometry getting weighted to it. We don't need to do that. So usually click no. And then this one's asking about skinning the weight geometry to the actual joints. Yes. And then you want to pick what you want to skin to it. So currently what you see, if you're using the same model, I went through and took this model and made it one single mesh. What I didn't do was I didn't put the clothes on it as a part of its mesh. I want to skin that separately, just so I have some variation of if I want to use them or not use them. So right now, we're just going to select the female base mesh and not the underwear. So you just want the female base mesh, and then you want to click and then shift click to select everything. We're going to say these are the controllers we want to smooth bind to. We want to set our max influences to 3. 3 is like the default, like the minimum that you'll use. Back in the day, 3 was like the maximum that you could use. But using Unreal Engine, depending on your output and what you're using it for, I think Unreal now can do 8 verts per joint. It's still not ideal to do 8 verts per joint. Depending, if you're doing mobile or if you're doing anything other than cinematic type stuff, it's not going to matter. So we're going to do 3 just to get in, stay in the routine of doing 3. You never really need to do more than that unless you're working with a very dense mesh. And in that case, you will want it to be, higher than 3, because when you talk about doing deformations for the face and the joints, like the shoulder area, the hip area, and more of that crotch area in the front, those are going to give you problems only because there's so much detail that's usually there with the topology, and so you're going to want to have more verts that you can put towards joints so you can blend it out even smoother. So we're going to keep it on 3. If you look back at the the window box here. We have our character selected. It has a black outline around it. And then we have our joints selected. And we want to click Smooth Bind. That should only have taken like a second. What it does is it takes the vertices and whatever the closest joint is to it, it just binds it to that. And then it does a envelope type setup where it'll start to base. If it's in between certain joints, it'll do like a 0.5, but it ranges all the way from 0 to all the way through the tens, like decimal point, the tens, going all the way to like 1. So it'll just blend it around whatever it is, but it won't do any more than 3 joints in the surrounding area. So now you can click close. So what we can do here to test it and see how things look is we can select the joints. Let me see, make sure my joints are turned on. So you can go up here. What this does is you can make a selection set. And so like they have like different types of selectable objects. So we just want to select joints right here. And so if we select our joints, let me see if we can go here. So here's our joint that we want to select. We want to go to rotation, and you can start rotating things out. And you can see how it's all messed up and everything, but that's what we're going to fix right now. But as you can see, everything is set up not too bad, right? So what we want to do is we want to go in and we want to take our mesh and weight our mesh to be better formed to the joints. The way you can do that with the tool that they provide under the rig creator is this first default is when you select your mesh. You got to turn this back on. So I might as well just put it back on, select all, or make all selectable again. Select your mesh, and then you'll get options under here of the skin joints or what you can do. What you're going to want to do to start this is right click on the mesh, and then go to right click and hold, and then go to vertex. So now you can select some vertices, and over here in the channel box it'll show you the joints that these vertices are actually weighted to and what their weight values are. So you can go and use this, or you can go and use the component editor. What we are going to do first is we're going to use this, which is like using the component editor, but we're going to use this first in order to get the desired joints where they should be. So for example, if you're taking your forearm and you know at a certain distance from the wrist down to the elbow, you want all that to be on the forearm. We're going to weight it there. Yes, I think we have some twist bones, but if you did not add twist bones, we can still get certain rotations out of weighting from the hand to the wrist and to the elbow going to the shoulder joint. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Again, we're using like a normal rig setup for the body, nothing too crazy for this, because our goal is to make sure we can get the deformation how we need. With the lobe topology of this character, I don't think we'll need twist bone in there if one is not already in there. I think one is in there by default. But what we're going to do now is we're going to start at the extremities. That's the best way to start skinning your character. Work your way from the outer part. So an example, from the toes all the way through the foot, ankle area, calf, leg, and then work yourself back up to this torso area. We're going to quickly lay that out first. Then we're going to go in and paint. We're going to do our range of motion. And then from our range of motion, we're going to do our paint weights. And that's where we can go in and start blending the knees. You can do that all by hand as well. But, it's good to learn both types. And I think the way I'm going to show you how to paint weights in here for this topology of a character is going to be better for you to grab. A lot of people use paint weights right off the bat. And usually that's ideal when you're working with like a very dense mesh, because you're going to go crazy trying to, pick every vert and put it where it needs to be. Unless you just got time on your hands and you want to do that. That's not normally what people do when the mesh is super dense. So let's get started. So let's start. Sometimes you can mirror it, but we're going to do both sides independently just because it's good practice. So what we're going to do is we want to select these verts on the toe. So we'll go to vertice. Okay, so why did that happen? That happened because we can select our joint as well as the mesh. And the priority is the joints, I believe, for some reason. And it'll select the joint over the vertices. So what we want to do is we can go in and we can actually hide our joints because we just need to worry about the mesh right now. Then go back to vertices. And then select the vertices you want. And there you go. How did I hide the joints? You go to show right here, and there's a joints icon or a label or whatever, and you can just toggle it on and off. All right. So you can hit F to focus. Just want to make sure we grabbed everything we want to grab. We don't need this, so I'm just going to unselect that. Unselect by shift clicking. Whatever is selected, you can unselect. I think I want to take these off too because of how the topology looks down here. It looks like it should go across, but it doesn't, and they probably did that just to save on some verts. So we're gonna leave those off and just worry about having it go here for now. And we'll just use this as like a blending, this next row of segments. I just don't want it to go too far into the foot right now. So we're gonna put those right now. You can see out of all the ones we selected, they are on the root, which should be 0. Everything should be 0 on the root. Like we should just select everything right now and do that, but that's what we're gonna do. Actually, we don't want anything onto our root, and it's just gonna cause problems as you get more into the nitty gritty of the actual file. So select everything. It's gonna show a bunch of stuff over here. Go to where it says root. There should be root in this list somewhere. Or you can select root here and then hit 0. And that should now make it where there is no root in this list. So then just check this list again to see if there's any root in here. And there shouldn't be. And you're good to go. So if we select those again on the foot, root shouldn't show up on those joints. So let's try it again. Sometimes I start and I don't do the root, and then I start kicking myself because I'm like, why is this moving when I move the arm? The root is affecting it. Duh. All right, let's take the root off at that point. And then what you'll have is, because the root was affecting some of the deformation or some of the influence, that influence is going to get spread back out over the other joints. And most times it'll get spread out and it'll still be incorrect because now it's not what you set it for. It's like interpolating what those new values would have been, which is not good. So we have our selection. It looks good. We're going to go and see the root is not on here anymore. This is the ball of the foot. So we want to go, we want to select our ball joint, and we can go to ball R right here, and we're going to turn that to 1. So now it's on 1. Select it in the skin joints, select the number you want as the value, and then you'll see the skin vertex info down here. So that's good to go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the ankle next. And why we're doing this is because we're putting a hard number on the areas of the mesh to go to the joints, which is super fast to do as opposed to if you're trying to paint it by default, because you're going to get these weird values to start. We only want to paint when we start doing our range of motion and seeing like, ooh, we need this to blend better, right? So let's select our next set of vertices and just kind of remember what you had selected before so you don't select it again. We want to add these to this one. Let's go back here, start selecting some of the heel. You want to zoom in and out and just grab stuff. Sometimes when you select stuff, it'll deselect vertices that you already had selected. So you just got to go back and make sure that you're selecting everything, or you have everything selected that you want. You might want to turn this to the transform gizmo so it's not in the way of you selecting anything. All right, that looks good. I think I'll leave it like that, because then we know our blending will be at this row of verts right here, and this row of verts will be to the calf joint.